Hello guys, and welcome back to the channel. So this is the part 2 of making this outfit. If you missed the last one where we made the skirt part, please, I'll leave a link in the description box below so you can go and check it out. Let's get right into the video. So here I just marked out my bust point, my under bust, my half length and my full length to start with. And what I'm going to do next is I'm going to come out by 1 inch, as you see me doing here. This is just for our button allowance because it is going to overlap. We're going to have a button there, so I'm going to leave 1 inch. So I'm just going to rule a straight line after marking out my 1 inch. You can go ahead to use even 1.5 if you wish to, so you can fold it in, but I just prefer to make use of 1 inch. So here I'm just going to mark out my neck depth, and for this one I actually made a terrible mistake. Please don't be like me. For the back, when you're drafting the back, you should go down by half an inch and create your curve as you see me doing here, and for the front you should go down by 1 inch. Here I went down way too much and my collar was too wide, so please do not make that mistake. To go ahead to mark out the shoulder line, and the shoulder line is starting after the point where we have our 1 inch. So I'm just going to mark my shoulder measurement divided by 2, and I'm going to come down by 1 inch the way we normally create our normal armhole. I'm just going to do that as well to create our armhole. So after ruling out the line, I'm just going to create a slant from my neckline to where we went down by 1 inch. So this is what we have. So guys, if you have a curve, I'll advise you make use of it to make everything just look neat and come out well. I do not have a curve, so I'm just going to mark out the lines the way I normally do for my videos. If you've been following me for some time now, you will know how I create my armhole. So I'm just going to create it. It's going to be far better when you're creating this with a curve. So guys, I'm just going to add my bust measurement divided by 4. I'm just going to add it, and then I'm going to add my under bust measurement divided by 4 and my hip measurement divided by 4 for the bottom part. And the length I'm using for the top, I'm making use of 26. This is because I would want to pair it with pants or shorts differently, but you can work with 25, 24 depending on your height as well. So I'm just going to rule down the measurements to meet the one at the bottom part, and I'm going to go ahead to add 1.5 sewing allowance. And when I'm done adding the allowance, I'm just going to roll that down as well, so you can see the body measurement, and you can as well see the sewing allowance marked out. So guys, the extra line you're seeing there is the fact that I added my hip measurement and our 1.5 inch allowance to the bottom part, and I just dragged it to meet with our half length. Here I'm just trying to curve it out to make sure there's no harsh lines, so everything is looking smooth when we cut. So this is what we are working with right now. I'm just going to cut out this pattern. So you can actually draft this freehand on your fabric and just cut, but the fabric I'm working with is really stretchy, so I just pattern this on the paper before transferring it to my fabric. After we're done cutting this out, we're just going to fold in that 1 inch we have there so we can be able to cut our back piece. So I'm just going to fold in the 1 inch. So now we're just going to cut the pattern on our fabric. So here I'm just going to adjust it because the pattern was not long enough to the length that I desired. I'm just going to mark out the length that I want to work with, and I'm just going to cut it out as you see me doing here. So don't forget that this is our back piece and we are cutting this on fold. After cutting the back piece, we just brought back our 1 inch. As you can see, the 1 inch we left out at the front, we just brought it out and we are just going to cut the neckline. Like I said, this was a big mistake on my part. Please make sure your front piece you're making use of 1 inch and your back piece you're making use of 1/2 inch, so your neck round measurements will not be too wide. So we are just going to cut this out. So after cutting it out, I'm just going to slit the midpoint open. So now we have 2 pieces for the front, as you can see. So for the sleeve, I'm making use of a basic sleeve and I just slit it open in 2. We're making use of the slash and spread method. So I just brought a new pattern paper, not a new one. As you can see, it's obviously not new. So I'm just going to tape it down, but I'm going to measure it to the width that I want, to how wide I want it to be, because I do not want it to be too wide and at the same time I don't want it to be too small. So I'm satisfied with the way it looks right now, so I'm just taping it down, and when I'm done taping this down, I'm just going to cut it out. Here I just use my tape to measure what we had before we slit it open and to compare that with what we have right now, and it was okay and it was just how I wanted it to be. So I'm just going to cut it out. So guys, after cutting, I just went ahead to check if the measurements we had is still intact and correct and everything is fine. I'm just going to do the finishing touch and transfer this on fold to our fabric. So this is what it's looking like after we were done cutting it on fold. So make sure you cut 2 of this. So we're going to work on the front piece first. So I'm just going to take this one aside to work on the first one to show you guys. So what we are going to do is we are going to fold in that 1 inch we added. So you can see what I'm doing right now. I folded it in and I'm going to use my hemming gum to do this. I'm going to use the hemming gum to iron it down, and I'm going to do this for the 2 piece. So this is what it's looking like after I was done ironing down our hemming gum. You can see that it looks far neater than the way it would look if you were going to sew on it. So please take note and make sure you iron it very well when you're using your hemming gum, because if you do not iron it very well, it's still going to come off after a while of washing and the rest. So this is what it's looking like right now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get the back piece and I'm going to lay the back piece down, and I'm going to reassemble the front piece on the back piece, right sides facing each other. Please take note, right sides facing each other. So I'm going to sew at the shoulder part the way you see me illustrating right now. I'm just going to sew for the 2 shoulders. We are going to join the back piece and the front piece together. So we are going to sew here by 1/2 inch and sew there by 1/2 inch. After sewing the shoulders down, we are going to go on to sew the sides down as well. So this is what it's looking like after I was done. Right now I'm just going to attach my sleeve. I made a notch at the center of the sleeve, so we are just going to assemble it the way you see me illustrating right now. From the joining we had at the shoulder, that's where the notch part is going to start. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to hold my notched sleeve and I'm going to assemble it from the midpoint of the main fabric. That is where we have the joining. I'm going to use my pin and I'm going to pin it down. After pinning it down, I'm just going to sew. So this is what we have after sewing down the two sleeves. What we are going to do next is we are going to add our elastic to the sleeve. So what I'm going to do is, you can either fold it and then pass your elastic through, or you can pin down your elastic the way you see me doing now. You fold it with your elastic and then you pin the elastic, you sew, and then you drag it to the length you desire. So you can see that I pin it down and it's not going anywhere. So I'm just going to fold it in and sew. Please make sure you do not sew on your elastic, if not you're going to have to lose it, so please take note. So this is what it's looking like after we were done sewing. You can see that everything is looking nice. Right now I'm just dragging it to the desired length that I want. This is different for everybody because most persons' wrists are smaller than others. So this is what I'm going to work with. This is okay for me. So I'm just going to take my pin and pin it down and go over to the sewing machine to run a back stitch on the elastic so it does not move or go anywhere. So we are going to do that for the two sleeves, and this is what it's looking like after I cut out the excess sleeve. Now we're just going to close everything down. So I'm going to close it down and sew it all the way down, but I'm going to stop 2 inches before the bottom part, just because I want an opening there, so it's going to look a bit stylish if I'm going to choose to wear this without the bottom piece we made with it. If I choose to wear it with my pants, it's going to look okay, it's going to look stylish. So that's just what I want. You can do this however you want. So after that, you're just going to fold the bottom part and sew. So this is what it's looking like after I was done sewing the bottom part. So guys, I'm just taking my tape to measure around our neckline in order to get the measurements we are going to be working with for our collar. So please make sure you do not make the same mistake I did. So your collar round measurement will not be too wide. So I'm going to just take note of the figure I got to draft our collar. So 15 divided by 2, we're just going to cut this on 4 divided by 2, and I'm just going to mark that out, and I'm going to mark 1 inch as you see me doing here. I'm going to mark 1 inch and I'm going to rule it out. After that, you create a curve as you see me doing here. If you cannot do this, just mark ½ inch inwards and just curve it down ½ inch downwards as well. I hope you understand. So right now I'm just marking 2 inch upwards and I'm going to make another ruling as you can see me doing right now, and I'm just ruling everything to meet. So from that point I went forward by ½ inch, and I'm going to rule this out, and I'm going to drag it down to meet that curve we created there. So I'm just going to drag it to meet it. So this is what it's looking like. This is the simplest method to cut your collar. So we are going to cut this out. Please remember that we are cutting this on fold because this is on fold, so take note of that. Guys, you can see that our collar is really is really long, and it's because of the mistake we made at the start of the drafting. So please take notes to avoid this mistake. So this is what it's looking like after I went ahead to iron this on our fabric, and I left 0.5 inch sewing allowance round. I cut 2 pieces for each of the collar, one for the main fabric and one as our lining. So this is what it's looking like. So I'm just going to join this piece together, right sides facing each other, and I'm going to sew. You can see the direction I'm sewing towards. I'm just going to sew this. So after we were done sewing, I went ahead to trim off the excess, and we are just going to turn this out and give it a good press. So now we're just going to bring our other piece, and I'm going to fold this to get the midpoint and create a notch at the midpoint. And I'm going to do the same thing for the lining part and for the part we just ironed as well. So we are just going to assemble everything right sides facing each other. As you can see, we just made sure that the parts we notched are meeting each other, and I'm going to pin that down. After pinning this down, I'm just going to pin the other parts so we can start sewing. So this is what it's looking like. So from the midpoint, from the center, we are just going to sew and follow the curve and curve it down. And please, when you're sewing, make sure you don't sew on that part. You just sew to that direction without sewing on the other part. Then you as well, from the center, you sew to the other side as well. So guys, we are done sewing. We are just going to turn this to the right side and give it a good press again. So I'm creating a notch again just so we can attach this to our shirt. So I'm just going to create a notch, and I'm as well going to create a notch for our shirt. So guys, this shirt, I'm going through a lot with this shirt right now. So I went to overlock it so the material doesn't fray, and they overlocked the neckline, which they were not supposed to do that. And this is what we have, so we're just going to work with it. So I'm just going to mark the midpoint so we can attach our collar. Please make sure you fix your collar before you go to overlock it if you do not have an overlocking machine in your house, so they don't do this to you as well. So we are just going to pin it down. You can see that I'm pinning it from the part where I have the stay. So I'm just going to pin that part down and pin it all the way around. So when we are done pinning this down, we're just going to go ahead to sew. So make sure you pin everything in place well so you can sew. So guys, this is what it's looking like after we were done sewing the neck. So we are just going to do the other parts we left behind. So the fabric was all over the place, so this was the only method I could use to lay it down. I had to iron it first and pin it down, iron it and pin it down as I go because of the kind of fabric I was working with. So I'm just going to do this process and pin it down and sew it down, and our collar is done. If you're working with a fabric like this, please make sure you take your time and be patient with it, especially if you're still a beginner. Please be patient to do this so everything comes out looking nice. After I was done pinning it down, I'm just going to sew on that line we have there. I'm just going to sew a straight knit line As you can see me demonstrating, that's how we are going to be sewing. So guys, we are done with this collar and everything is looking nice. I went ahead to make use of press buttons just so everything is looking really nice. So this is, thank you for watching. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, subscribe and turn on the notification bell. See you on my next video. Bye guys.